Have you heard of pivot tables, but always felt like they were too complicated? I certainly thought that for many years. Pivot tables may look and sound complicated, but Excel has done a lot to make simple data analysis easy.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 2, 5, 7.
Today I'll walk through the basics of creating a pivot table in Excel. I'll also go through a few questions to highlight how to analyze data using the pivot table. For examples, I'll be using sample data from a file I'll provide a link to in the description. You can pause the video now to download it and follow along, or try these techniques later on your own. I've opened up the sample file here and selected the phone store visit data sheet. On that sheet, we've got a set of data that depicts the day, hour, and then what store people visited and how many people visited that store in that hour on that day. We'll use this data to create our pivot table, but before we do that, we need to format it into a table. That'll just make our lives a little easier as we go about things. I click on anywhere in this data and I come over to the styles section and I select format as table. Now, any of these colors here, any of these formats will work just fine. I'm going to pick blue for right now. It will pull up a dialog asking us what's the range, what cells do we want to include in our table, and it'll ask us if our table has headers. Ours does. That's these up here. So I'll click OK, and we have our table selected for us. Up here we now have the header in a darker color and alternating styles for the rows. We could filter this if we wanted to. What's important to note here is that it's called Table 1. Okay. To create our pivot table from this, we'll go to the Insert, and then we'll select Pivot Table from Table or Range. Because we already have a table and we know that it's Table 1, we can select that right here. If you had a range, we would have to go ahead and reselect that range. We don't have to do that right now. We do want it in a new sheet. That keeps everything separate for us, and I can click OK here. We can see that it created a new sheet for us, and then up here is the blank pivot table. I'm going to zoom out here and show that on the right-hand side, we have this pivot table fields section, and that will go away if I click off of the pivot table. So I have to come back here. If I want it back, I'll click on it again, and it comes right back. I've pulled up some sample questions here for us to go through and show how we can analyze some of the data. One of the questions, first question is, how many people are going into store 1 between 2 and 3 in the afternoon each day? For that, we'll need to add hours to rows. And so let's show how to do that. I'll come back over here. All I did was click on hours and held it down and dragged it over to rows. We'll also need days, what days, to the columns. And let's take a look at what that did to our pivot table so far. We have hours as our rows and days as our columns. Now we have no data yet, so let's fill that out. We want to know store 1's information. So we'll pull store 1 into the values section. And then we can take a look at what happened to our pivot table. There's our data. So how many people are going into store 1 between 2 and 3? Well, just to make life easy here, we have all of these spread across. So I'm clicking on them and dragging them around to order them a little bit better. Just makes life easy to read. 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to noon, noon to 1, and then we keep going all the way down. So when the question is between 2 and 3, how many people are going to the store each day? Well, each day we've got 173, 158, 173, 178, 303. Nobody on Saturday. Oh, interesting. What does that tell me? That tells me that we're closed after noon on Saturdays. Helpful to see that here right through the data. Our next question asks, what day has the most visitors? Okay, we'll use store one, keep going with store one here, and we'll come down here to the grand total, and we can see which day has the most. It's very clearly Friday, with almost double the number of visitors in any other day. Great. Come back here to the next question. What time range has the most visitors? We'll stick with store one still here. And for that, we'll look at the grand total over here. These are the grand totals for the times. And we can see, oh gosh, it's close between 2357 and 2094. But 2357 has it, and that's the 11 to noon time frame. Makes a bit of sense because we have Saturday included in that. Add a little bit extra. If we didn't include Saturday, it would very much be the noon to 1 time frame. Okay, then we can take a look at what time range has the most visitors by store. Okay, for this one, we don't need day, so we can actually come over here and clicking on the drop down arrow, I'm going to remove that field. Then I want to add the main store, store 2, store 3. Come over here and look at those. That's where we've added them down here in the values, and each one is the sum. Great, because that's what we want to have. And then as I look at what the table did, pivot table looks like, I want to reorder these just a little bit. We'll drag this one over there. Now we have main store 1, 2, 3. Just keeps things in order. Question we had is, what time range has the most visitors by store? We can look at this here. The main store is 4731 at 11 to noon. Store 1, once again 11 to noon at 2357. 2314 for store 2, same time range, and 2376 for store 3. So across all 3 stores, 11 to noon is our peak time. Okay, then we can look at next question here, which is, what day has the most visitors from 11 to noon by store? To do this, we need to change some things around. Now, we've sat there and specified a very specific hour. So instead of having that filled out across everywhere, we can take this hour and we can move it up to the filters. And then we want the day down here in the rows. Okay. Come back up to our table and we can see what that did to us. We now have days over here as our rows. And up here we have this filter option. So if we click on that, I can select, we set 11 to noon. Select that. Now everything in this table is filtered to just the 11 to noon time frame, and we can tell you what day had the most visitors. Is that Friday? Nope, it's Saturday for the main store with 1353. Saturday for store 1. Saturday and Saturday. Store 3 is getting a little close with 510 to 684, but still Saturday. And that's interesting because Saturday is the day that we were only open till noon. So unexpected to see that, but good to know that. Those are some of those insights we can take away. And then last here we have what's the average visitors by day for store number 2? For that, we're going to need to get rid of all these other stores. Come down here and remove the field, or I can come up here and uncheck them. Average visitors by store, by day. So we need days up there. We don't need the filter anymore. So we can remove the filter. And instead of the sum, we want the average. So if I select value field settings, another dialog pops up. This time we can select average instead of sum. The name changes to average of store 2. Click OK. And then as we look at our pivot table up here, we see the days, and we see the average. So everything else we've seen so far is all the Mondays that we have data for. What's the total number of visitors on Monday? Here we're asking for each individual Monday, if we took all those, what's the average number of visitors we have on Monday? 22, 22, 23, 22. Friday bumps all the way up to 39, and Saturday we have 45 visitors on average. Double the numbers of visitors on Saturdays and almost double on Fridays. Where do we need our most staff at? Certainly Fridays and Saturdays. This is just the very basics of what a pivot table can do, but don't be afraid. Keep going, see what else you can play with. There is no wrong way to do this. If you mess it up, simply download the sample file again and start from scratch. But when you play around with this, we can have those extra opportunities to learn. We can see what it does. You can change things around, you can move things, and explore as you go. This is just the very basics of what pivot tables can do. But don't be afraid, keep going and see what else you can learn by applying pivot tables to data you use every day. I'll be making future videos that increase the complexity and difficulty of the tasks we're doing inside pivot tables and how we analyze the data using that tool.